Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Okay, hello everybody. I am your host, Goud. This is the Goud Crowd. Thank you for listening. Please like and share so that other people can also enjoy the show. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, so sorry we're starting a few minutes late. For some reason, the program we use was not starting the live stream. So anyway, we got it fixed. We're here. Okay, so first, I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I actually got to go to San Diego to visit my family and had a great time. It was actually very nice. While I was down there, I actually listened to a story that Rush Limbaugh told about the first Thanksgiving. And I thought it was really insightful because it turns out that a lot of the Thanksgiving story has been left out. And specifically, it's the part where they go from being kind of socialist into a capitalist model of land ownership and production, and that goes and takes them from being having some failures into being a very successful colony. And actually, the whole thing was kind of neat to listen to, because I think today we can't really get a sense of what it was like for people to cross the ocean into a new world where there was ostensibly nothing. I mean, there's these Native Americans, I guess, but I mean, they didn't really develop it in a traditional sense. And so you come to this land, it's wild, you don't know anything about it. You have to build homes, you have to start all fresh. Actually, assuming you even make it across the ocean, because I don't think you're going on cruise lines from you're not going on a cruise line to get from Europe to the New World. And so you just have to think about how harrowing of a journey that is, and then how perilous the entire setting up of a new colony and a new life, and really just like giving up everything you had in the old world to be able to start anew and to live the life that you believed in. And really, I mean, if you think about this, you're cutting family ties, you're cutting the ties with your homeland to be able to do this. It's not like it's nothing like immigration would be today, where people come here and they continue to have connections to their homelands, including to families back home, sending money back home, traveling back home, all of that type of stuff, being able to talk back home. And I'll say it's even different now than when I grew up, because when I was growing up, if for example, like we wanted to call our grandmothers in India, we would have to do that on a telephone, and then they didn't have cell phones. We didn't have cell phone growing up, obviously, and then they didn't have cell phones in India, and not everybody even had a telephone. Telephones in India were actually they're very few and far between, and so when people had an actual landline, it was a big deal. And so you'd have to kind of set up a time to call your grandmother to talk to her. And then now when I look at it, it's like a totally different world where everybody has a cell phone. They can do video calls to people back home, and they can continue to have these connections to their, I guess, quote unquote, mother countries, depending on how strong those bonds are. But it just shows you like how much the world has changed from the Pilgrims, right, who are true settlers in a wild land, to what's happening today, which is immigrants who are coming here for a better life, and not really to improve what we already have here. And that's because we're just at a very different place in our development than what we were back in those days. But anyway, I just think it's worth listening to that. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is I had a conversation with this guy that I'm dating, and his family is a ranching family, and so they have a ranch in Utah. And so he was home for Thanksgiving, and he told me that he was talking to his parents about AI data centers and about how much water they use and how bad they are to bring to a place that is parched for water like Utah. What he told me is that his family didn't know that because there has not been, I think, enough information put out about the dangers of AI centers to Utah's environment and to our way of life. And I'm not even getting to the part about what is the whole purpose of AI anyway. From what I can tell, the AI that we have is just, it's garbage, right? You're going to ask it a question. It's going to give you the ostensible answer. You actually need to go and verify that the information it gives you is correct. But because most people won't do that, it's going to create a population that is stupid. And if you want to understand what I mean, just think about what COVID was like. There was all this propaganda, right? So you got to wear your mask, wear a mask. And it turned out that if you did any digging at all, you'd quickly find out that the entire mask thing was a bunch of BS. And that even the people pushing it knew that it would not be effective in preventing you from spreading or getting COVID. They did the same thing with the whole, remember you had to stand 6 feet apart from people, this like the magical 6 foot distance, and people fell for that. And a lot of times what you notice is that the people who were steeped in propaganda, meaning they were watching the mainstream media and just believing everything that they were told, or they were just looking at headlines on articles on social media, we're never actually getting the accurate story. And I think AI presents the same dangers. The difference is now people think like, oh, AI is smart. And so it's going to go in, and it's going to dig, and it's going to get you all the information you need. But then a lot of times what it gives you is not accurate, and it's going to be politically tinged to the left. And to push their agenda. That's what all this is really is going to turn into. So I thought we'd talk about it today, because this is actually a big threat to Utah itself, because we actually have the type of physical and weather environment that the people that develop AI data centers actually like. And so they want to build them here. And the question is, do we want their data centers to be here? So first, Governor Cox, Utah's quote unquote governor, is going to have X is offering to have Grok explain this post. Shall we click it? Let's see. Okay, it says, it's doing some magic. Grok is going to tell us what this is about. I don't know why I can't just read the post and tell you this myself, but okay. So Governor Cox says, join us this Tuesday, that's tomorrow, for the 2025 Utah AI Summit at the Salt Palace Convention Center. We're bringing together leaders from industry, academia, workforce, and government to chart the course for pro-human AI. I kind of went through and looked at the agenda for tomorrow. I don't actually have any idea what this means, but I do think people should go to it. I just don't have time tomorrow, because I think it's useful to see what policymakers are pushing to be pro-human AI, because I don't think there is much about the way our AI development is going that's actually pro-human. Let's see. This actually kind of tells you the same thing. So let's see. So it says Utah Governor Spencer Cox's post promotes the inaugural. This is what Grok says. Inaugural 2025 AI Summit on December 2nd at Salt Lake City's Salt Palace. This says the same thing we just read. The event features keynotes from Cox, NVIDIA co-founder Chris Malachowski. I guess he would not be biased at all. Although I think Wayne just came back on. Oh, hold on, Wayne. Are you there, Wayne? Is that Dwayne? Sorry. You're back. But
I'm back.
Okay.
Looks like I'm much better now. I'm healthier now.
Okay, good. I think Dwayne was the problem before. in terms of our technical difficulties. Cloudflare CEO Matthew Prince and actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt with interactive panels on topics like data privacy, that's an important one, and personalized medicine, plus a $175 ticketed format supported by partners including OpenAI and Silicon Slopes. The replies revealed polarized sentiment, with critics decrying potential government overreach, high costs, and ties to Cox's past refugee policies, while the summit's focus positions Utah as an emerging hub for balanced AI governance and national debates on regulation. This to me is like, why do I need this? I could just go, I can read this myself. Like, I don't need AI to tell me this. Like, what a waste. That's kind of my point. I think a lot of the AI stuff is actually just a waste. So anyway, I encourage everybody to go. My own view is this: Utah's politicians are not actually deep enough thinkers to come up with good policy on this. No offense. I think that they'll over-focus on pornography as being the biggest threat from AI. So, you know, like they're going to use AI to create porn and to create like weird, I've seen some of this now, right? These weird like virtual people that you can develop a relationship with. So, you know, your like cousin who's socially awkward and can't find, depending if it's a boy or girl or whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend. And now instead they can go and have a relationship with some weird AI chatbot. And that's probably what they'll focus on, versus the fact that, number one, I think this is a big danger to children and developing their cognitive abilities, because children, I actually think, need to be taught to go to source materials and to not really believe anything people write, to question everything and to go to the source materials and make their own determinations. I think a lot of times we're encouraging children instead to kind of believe surface level analysis that doesn't actually portray the truth. So it's a big danger to your children developing their research and cognitive abilities. I think it's actually a big danger to jobs in general, because the way that it just seems weird to me that we're trying to get them to go out and wipe out tons of employment and all this kind of stuff. And I guess I don't see that as being very pro-human. And maybe there's an argument that some of that could happen and we have to be open to it. And maybe there's something to that. I don't know. But I tend to think we should actually default towards less societal churn in terms of jobs and stuff than more. And typically the people that get impacted the most are the people with the lowest skills. And so a lot of times they're constantly getting churned and they're not able to make it ahead because of that. And I feel like we should be more cognizant of that and sensitive to it and find better ways to use AI so it's not actually doing that. Then the other piece of it is, I think it'll be, I guess overall, I'm just not seeing great value in this. People can, and I use it once in a while, because like if I write, so I'm a lawyer, so if I draft something and I want to see if there's good revisions, I'll go use AI to I'll just put a sentence in and be like, hey, give me a revision. But that's a small efficiency versus, you know, having a lawyer being completely replaced by AI, which I don't see happening, because AI puts out a lot of false information and the legal industry is very human-based. So I don't see that being a real competition at this point. And I don't think I see it in the future anyway, because I'm not really sure how that would work when the entire point of our system is it's run by humans to try to come up with the best result based on the arguments that are made to the decision makers. Okay, anyway, let's talk about data centers. So in Utah, we just had a data center that was approved for Millard County. Okay, but let me start before that. There is oh wait, actually maybe this is where I want to start. Oh, I have this letter. Okay, let me show you this letter. This actually got me interested that maybe people are beginning to wake up to the dangers of hold on, the dangers of these AI data centers. So this guy, Nathan Hole, oh God, look at all these ads. Okay, I reached out to him on LinkedIn, but I haven't heard back. But if I do hear back from him, I'll try to bring him on the show, because I thought his insights were actually excellent. And I think I'm sharing the wrong one. So give me 1 second here. Let me fix this, because I highlighted what I wanted to talk about. Try to make this more efficient. Let's see. Oh yeah. Okay, sorry. Hold on. Thanks, Mr. Producer. If you want to call in today, the number is 385-899-2134. Feel free to call in at any point in time. I don't have any interview guests today. It's right after the holiday, and so a little tough to get a guest. So it will be me telling you about AI data centers. But if you have any questions or comments, obviously feel free to call in. We love that on the show. Okay, so this guy wrote about this guy Nathan Hole, and he was saying and he was talking about the water usage of these data centers. Because one thing to keep in mind is that there are traditional data centers, and those are not as water intensive as the AI data centers. They're still water intensive, so don't get me wrong, but the AI data centers are even more water and power intensive, so they're much worse. He said Google and IBM's 1 million square foot data centers use approximately 200 million gallons, 600 acre feet annually, a staggering amount for a state in a mega drought. The new center approved in Millard County will cover 20 million square feet, meaning it could use up to 4 billion gallons annually. So that's 12,000 acre feet. I looked this up. So 1 acre foot of water can produce enough water for 3 households. So this would be about 36,000 acre feet or 36,000 homes that could be supplied with water for the amount of water that he is projecting would be used by the new data center in Millard County. He said, and this is kind of a key point, I think, communities deserve to know the impacts before projects are approved. I think he's right. Not after the damage is done. Utah must mandate water use disclosure from during the approval process and create a mechanism to reject projects threatening our ecosystems and rural livelihoods. Anything less sacrifices our rural communities on the altar of AI. Now, this is actually, I went and I did a grandma request for the ordinance approving the zoning change for the data center in Millard County. This is expected to be a multi-phase data center, so it will not all be built at once, right? And a couple of notable, this is what I thought was notable. Sorry, I'm going to scroll. So if you're watching, just close your eyes. Okay, this is actually where they describe what they're trying to get from the Millard County Commission. And the Millard County Commission approved this with no opposition, so it's unanimous consent. Now let me just start with water. I could not find a estimated amount of water that this new data center will use. Now I want to say they've said that it's going to cost a total of $2 billion to build this data center, and that it will be done in phases. So it is possible that water use will increase over time. They told Deseret News that for all of the water that they need, they already have the rights to it. That's possible, but it's hard to actually know if that's true because I could not find a single article talking about how much water this data center is expected to use. So here in the application this is the planning department. So I'll go from your planning department to probably a planning commission for approval, and then up to your county council in this case for approval, because I don't think this is in like unincorporated Millard County. When they say water here, they say minimal impacts, use of advanced technology to reduce water use. So, and in this application, I read the whole thing, there's nowhere it doesn't say how many gallons of water that this facility will end up using, even if they identified it in phases. Like in the first phase, it used this much, second phase, this much, nothing, nowhere, it doesn't say. The second piece about these data centers that's really problematic is how much power they use. And the reason this is important is because as a nation, we don't really build that much new power. We have so many regulations and so many restrictions on the ability to build power plants that we're not able to keep up with rapid growth like what these data centers are causing. Now, you can compare that to a place like China. They build 30 new coal plants a year. They just go on building and building and building. India is the same way. The difference I would say between China and India is this. I think China actually can supply all their people with electricity. India actually, I still don't think can. They have an electricity shortage. It's really bad. I mean, it's gotten better, but when I was a kid, we'd go visit my grandmother, and we go during the summer, and Indian summers are like, whoa, wow, hot, crowded, humid, and power would go out during the hottest time of the day for hours on end, and my grandmothers didn't even have air conditioning. They had ceiling fans. That was their so they'd have like a little battery pack to run the fans. The whole thing was crazy. But anyway, they're constantly building power plants, and we don't build at that rate or scale because of all the environmental and other regulations in the US that just make it impossible to build, right? I know, if you notice, they put up those solar panels all over the open land and they ruin it. But I haven't seen coal plants going up. I haven't seen you don't see natural gas plants going. Nuclear, I heard somewhere a nuclear plant just started up, but it was like the first one in 20 years. So power is a big deal. Now here, they are saying they're going to have an innovative power generation plan. Mr. Producer says, you mean like California? Brownouts galore in California, even with all the solar power. Yeah, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. It seems to be that's actually the whole green agenda. The green agenda is just a way to control you, or the climate change agenda, whatever you want to call it. Because I am all good with saying you want clean water and clean air. That's beautiful because we can measure it. Like I can tell, like, is the water clean? We can tell. Is it clean or not? Is the air clean? We can tell if it's clean or not. But when they get into climate change, there's no way to measure whether anything you are doing is actually reducing the alleged climate change caused by man. And so all it is a way to control you and to reduce your use of power, of everything, under the guise of climate change. And so no matter what you do, so if you got rid of every single fossil fuel plant in Utah and went to all green energy, and now you would have the brownouts that Mr. Producer is talking about because wind is not reliable, solar only is on during the day. And now some people would be like, oh, but you can put batteries to store all the extra power. Okay, you could do that, I guess, but this is it takes massive amounts of money to do that. It is way cheaper and way less impactful on the environment to build a natural gas plant than it is to have solar, quote unquote, plants or wind plants. Let me explain why. You can build a natural gas plant on let's say 100 acres of land. I'm just making up the acreage. That is the stamp of how much land it will take up. It will produce tons of energy from burning gas that will then be used to evaporate water, to move turbines and create electricity. And it can be done 24/7. And it can be done actually pretty cleanly. Natural gas is pretty clean. So that's your geographic stamp of the natural gas power plant. In comparison, your solar plants are just used to cover up hundreds and hundreds of acres of land. They're ugly. They destroy it for animals. They destroy it for cattle. It's no longer useful land. And then the other thing to think about is you have to run wires to all of those solar panels to bring that power back to a central line that can then be used to move that power to where you need it. So it's not efficient. And we destroy so much land with this stuff. That's one example. Wind power, they go set up these windmills all over the place. You cannot live by a windmill. The zurring of the windmill, that'll make you sick. The noise, people can't deal with that. They also kill birds by the thousands, right? Because they just fly into these things. They only are running when the wind is blowing. And now again, you're having to run all these wires into what could be beautiful farmland, and you're destroying it to bring that power back to where it's actually needed. And so you compare that type of environmental destruction to the natural gas, coal, these types of power plants, or nuclear even, these types of power plants where you're talking about much smaller footprints to produce much greater amounts of power, much more reliably, that can be used, and cheaply, by the way. Like a lot, I think that what has happened is the conversation around energy tends to be dominated by rich white liberals, and those people are not, they are not concerned about the cost of anything because they make tons of money. And so if they have to pay 1,000 times more for power, they don't care, because they can virtue signal about what good people they are, and it does not impact them financially. But these policies have to be aimed at working class people who are trying to just make it in this world, and trying to get ahead. And the last thing we should be doing is driving up the cost of basic necessities, and power is one of them. Now, rich white liberals will tell you, I think, like, oh, you can live without power, no big deal, as they go, run off to their little, their beautiful home on the bench that's fenced off so no illegal aliens can get to it, and they have solar panels on their home and maybe a windmill for themselves. But normal people, like, we can't do that. That's unrealistic. And so we should be looking for ways to make power cheap and plentiful. And again, like, we can do that by also looking at having clean air and clean water, which again are measurable. Like I said, like, you can do all that stuff I said, completely eliminate all quote unquote greenhouse gases. And then, because you're trying to fight climate change, but at the end of the day, they'll never tell you that you've done enough to fight climate change. They'll keep on trying to push you to do more. And so all you would have done at that point, because solar and wind are more expensive than fossil fuel energy, is you would have driven up the cost of power, made it less reliable, and just made everybody miserable to try to satisfy people that are mentally insane and are really just like, they're just stooges for communists who are trying to destroy our way of life and make it so that we cannot live a comfortable middle-class life in America. That's the actual goal. And so we should be aiming for getting lots of cheap, reliable fossil fuel power, and do it in a way that ensures that we have clean air and clean water. That's it. This is all pretty simple, I think. Okay, anyway. These data centers actually use massive amounts of power. And I have this article for you. Here, why don't we just switch to this real quick. This just came out recently from CNBC, talking about how energy costs in states with lots of data centers are actually skyrocketing. So he said in at least 3 states with high concentrations of data centers, this is electric bills climbed faster than the national average during the period. For example, electricity prices surged by 13% in Virginia. Virginia apparently has the most data centers out of any state in the country. Ohio, 12%, and Illinois, 16%. So all of these data centers are causing power costs to surge in these states because they are not increasing the capacity to produce energy. Mr. Producer says, how about nuclear? Cleanest energy there is zero carbon. I agree. I am fine with nuclear. Maybe not by my house, but I'm good with nuclear. And actually, I wish I could find it. I saw an interesting post where they showed a nuclear power plant, and it had been running, let's say, for 40 years. And all of the waste from the power plant was actually just able to be stored on site in these like cement containers. And there wasn't even that much of it. So it seems to be actually a very efficient way to produce lots of electricity and at low cost. And it, putting aside that there have been these disasters, I do think that they're much safer today. And so it's a very viable source of energy. Now, this guy also said data centers aren't always great neighbors, said Silverman, now a researcher at Johns Hopkins University. They tend to be loud, they can be dirty, and there's a number of communities, particularly in places with a really high concentration of data centers, that just don't want more data centers. So people that have lived by them don't want them. Where's my thing that I'm sharing with you guys? This is weird. Oh, here we go. Okay. And this shows you like the states and which ones have the most. We're kind of a mid state at 50 to 100 right now. You see Virginia is dark, Illinois is dark. Obviously Texas and California, these are our biggest states, so they've got a lot of them. Noticeably, Florida is it's a big population state, but fewer of these maybe than what you might expect, right? And then he said data center load growth is electricity. So it's a load growth, meaning on the power grid, is the primary reason for recent and expected capacity market conditions, including total forecast load growth, the tight supply and demand balance, and high prices. The firm Monitoring Analytics said in its June independent market monitor report. So I think this is kind of one of these interesting aspects where if you're going to allow these types of facilities to come into your state, you need to make sure that they're actually producing the power that they need. Otherwise, what they're going to do is drive the rates up for your citizens, who are probably then going to get pissed off. I think we just saw this in Virginia, where all of the statewide elected officials flipped from Republican to Democrat. And at least part of the Democrats, that Abigail Spanberger. So I don't actually think she's going to do any of this because she is a CIA agent. Like, I don't know why people elect CIA agents to office, but they do. But part of her thing was that electricity rates have skyrocketed. And so what she is going to do is to make sure that the data centers are paying their fair share. Now, I don't really know what that means, but because I think the issue is that they are sucking tons of power. And the question is, what are you getting for them sucking all that power out of your grid? Is it worth it? And is it worth it that you're driving up the costs for your residents for these data centers that don't even produce that many jobs, considering the size and scope of them? These are not like a factory. It's a building full of computers or servers, or what do we call them? Okay, so then let me see here. So then what I've got, so like I said, so that's the electricity piece of it. They also use a lot of water. Here's an article talking about the data center for Millard County. And talking, this is like saying it's like a great thing, but I thought there were some interesting aspects to this article. So this actually tells you why data centers like Utah as a place where they can put them. So geographic stability. So unlike California, we don't have as many earthquakes. I guess that's a good thing. Okay. Affordable energy costs. Utah boasts some of the lowest electricity prices in the country, making it a cost-effective option for power-hungry data centers. The cost savings on energy make Utah an attractive location for companies seeking to maximize operational efficiency while keeping expenses under control. So they're coming here for our cheap electricity. They're the ones that are going to drive our electricity costs up. Cool climate. This one surprised me because I guess we have a cool climate, but man, the summers here are awful. I'm just like, we have like 90s and 90s like all summer long. I don't know how people think it is a cool climate. This one I thought was interesting. Tax incentives. The state government actively supports tech expansion, offering tax incentives to companies investing in AI infrastructure. These incentives include property tax abatements, sales tax exemptions on equipment, and grants for energy efficient construction projects. Now, I'm just going to tell you that I have real issues with governments offering tax incentives to companies. They tend to do these for big companies, which puts your small companies at a disadvantage. I am a small business owner, and I think it is extremely unfair that we have these people who are big companies that are getting tax incentives, and they're doing it at the expense of small companies and regular citizens, because we all have to pay higher taxes to make up for the benefits being given to these big companies. Now, of course, they'll turn around and they'll give political donations to their benefactors, right? So the people that give them the people that will hand them the incentives will then turn around and get a nice political donation. But I think what we want I think Mr. Producer's having some technical difficulties. That's all good. It's all good, Mr. Producer. But so, I think the ideal situation is for our state government to reduce the tax burden on all businesses in Utah and to stop providing any incentives for any business. Because the whole goal should be that our government is not trying to pick winners and losers. They're instead letting people, the markets, decide what businesses will be here and what won't. And part of what makes the tax incentive thing so offensive is that I am a Utahn with a local business, right? If you're going to give tax incentives, they should go to people like me, the locals that are starting the businesses, because your small businesses are actually how people get independence. They're the ones that, when you have a COVID type situation, are more likely to allow their employees not to have to wear masks, not to have to get the COVID vaccination, allow them to still be free. Big companies, and I think actually a lot of our elected officials prefer that people work for big companies because they want you to be controlled. They want you to be forced to take a vaccine. Lieutenant Governor Henderson is on video in 2021 telling companies to force their employees to take the COVID vaccination. She specifically said that. And that's why I don't understand anyone that thinks she's a good person. This is a woman who cheated in the 2024 election, lied about her nieces being harassed at the 2024 GOP convention, told employers to force you to take the poisonous COVID vaccination. And now people act like she's a good person. She's a bad person, a horrible person. And I don't know how people vote for her even, like a totally bad human being, a liar, a fraud, someone who's done a lot of damage to people. And she won't answer any of these questions, by the way. She only runs to people like her scissor sister, Lindsay Aerts at ABC, who will only ask her easy questions. But she will not talk to any conservative media because she knows that these are the questions that we'll ask her about. Why are you such a nasty witch? I wouldn't ask that question, but I can ask those other ones. Like, why did you tell employers to force their employees to get the COVID vaccination? What data did you look at before you did that? Who told you that this was safe and effective? Why did you believe them? Like, what independent research did you do before you went and you told employers to force their employees to do that? I want to know that kind of stuff. My guess is she didn't. She doesn't strike me as super bright. So, there's that. Anyway, but my point is, state government should not be involved in deciding winners and losers. They should not be involved in trying to incentivize big companies to move here. All they should do is set up a system that does not have bias towards one company or another and allows our people to independently decide what kinds of businesses they want. This isn't that hard. And really, what that'll probably lead to is that it'll be more small businesses that start and more small Utah businesses that are the ones that grow and turn into something here. And that's what we should want, because it is the businesses started by locals will be the ones that reflect local values and the ones that are more likely that you could work for and still live the life you want. And so if you're LDS and you want to live as a devout LDS individual, want to be able to prioritize your family, you're going to want to work for a company that is probably started by someone that lives in Utah and understands Utah's culture, versus having an AI data center that comes from out of state and doesn't understand any of that. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, let me see if I had anything else on this. Okay, that's all I had on that, I think. But anyway, this is going to be a big project for Millard County. Only has like 13,500 people in it, so there's not even a lot of people out there. Then they're going to have this massive AI data center worth $2 billion that allegedly will create 800 permanent jobs. Now, I don't even know what phases that's in, because again, the application that we were looking at earlier, let me pull that back up, it doesn't have a lot of detail in it. And it was already approved. So I'm confused about, like, I don't understand why they didn't get more details on this. So I do think to Mr. Hull's point from earlier that we should have details about how much water these facilities will use during the application process. We should know they know in detail how much water they'll use. We should know that. Now they say that this facility is going to use some newfangled technology to reduce its water usage, and that's great. Happy to hear that, but still it's going to use water. And so there's a question of how much. They've said they're going to use this new technology. I don't know if they actually will, right? Sometimes they'll change things on you. Now, this one says that they are going to actually try to reduce their impact on our power grid. This is kind of interesting because they're going to build their own on-site natural gas reciprocating generators that will minimize their reliance on an impact to the local power grid. So, and then they'll have backup power from diesel generators. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And maybe if they produce all their own power, that's a good maybe model for how these things should be built going forward, especially if states are not going to be able to add the electricity capacity that they need to handle these. Noise mitigation. All natural gas generators and primary cooling equipment for phase 1 will be located within the footprint of the building, significantly reducing noise propagation. This is a big issue for people that live by these things. They're very loud, they're noisy. It's a constant din in the background, right? From all the computers, like, and so people probably don't want to live by them. And again, if you read articles about people that live by them, there are not people that are I haven't read one where everyone's happy that a data center moved into their community. Now they say direct, but by the way, that's only for phase 1. This is a multi-phase project, so I don't know what the future phases after that look like. And then it says direct jobs. The campus will create high-wage jobs across 3 broad categories. Security. I have literally never heard of security being a high-wage job, but okay. And I don't mean that as an insult to people that do security. The job should pay more. I'm saying I haven't heard of it as a high-wage job before. Maintenance and support, so HVAC, plumbing, electrical, building and grounds, and server technicians when it reaches full capacity. Notice, though, it does not tell you how many jobs they expect to create, how many permanent jobs, how many temporary jobs. Okay, so that's kind of, yeah, so overall what I'll say is this application is just lacking a lot of detail. And we need county commissions to do a better job of asking for information from these applicants, or we need the state to pass a law requiring more information in the applications, including, I like the idea of including water usage for these projects, because we need to make sure we have the water that they need. Okay. So let's see what else I have on this issue. I'm gonna find I lost my spot. Here, give me a second. Here we go. Okay. I got this example. Oh, where's my, hold up. Oh, I know where it is. Hold on. I've got an article, I think, about Georgia. Maybe not. Okay, well, here is, give me 1 second. There was a Georgia article that was really good. Georgia data center. I'm trying to find the article I saw. Here. Okay. So this is an article. It's actually in the BBC. And this talks about, because part of what's kind of weird about this is they put these data centers into rural areas that overwhelmingly vote Republican. And so in this example out of Georgia, Meta, so this woman retires, she buys a home in rural Georgia, right? She thinks she's found her dream. She retired in 2016. And then Meta comes in and puts a data center in. And she said that she believes the construction of the center, which is owned by Data, disrupted her private well, causing an excessive buildup of sediment. Miss Morris now hauls water in buckets to flush her toilet. She says she had to fix her plumbing in her kitchen to restore water pressure, but the water that comes out of the tap has residue in it. So, and now she's afraid to drink the water. She says, I can still cook with it and brush my teeth with it. Am I worried about it? Yes, this is a big thing. I don't know if you've ever been somewhere where you can't drink the water. Not pleasant. Now, Meta says being a good neighbor is a priority. Like, Meta was busy censoring people all throughout COVID with incorrect information, by the way. The idea that you would trust them on anything is just laughable. Totally laughable. I find it offensive that Trump invites Mark Zuckerberg into the White House for dinners. If anything, Meta should be broken up and they should be put under a consent order to force them to allow free speech no matter what. Right now, they're doing it because they think that's where the political winds are blowing. But the minute the Democrats get back into power, they will ratchet up censorship like you wouldn't believe all over again. So in response to her complaints, the company commissioned an quote unquote independent groundwater study to investigate Morris's concerns. According to the report, its data center operation did not adversely affect groundwater conditions in the area. Shocker. Their own study found that they didn't have an impact. Now, the thing is that they note here that the U.S. boom in data centers, we have the most data centers out of any country in the world, is being challenged by a rise in local activism, with $64 billion in projects delayed or blocked nationwide, according to a report from pressure group Data Center Watch. Now, what I'll say is this. If you go and you read the stories about opposition to data centers, it is very grassroots. It is nonpartisan, meaning it's people of both parties working together to defeat the data centers. And even the other side promoting it crosses party lines as well, because I think a lot of it is based on money. I mean, that's what's driving this whole thing. And now, so that's interesting, right? And the question at this point to me is, well, who is going to capture that demographic? Because if people feel like right now it's like Trump and the Republicans heavily pushing these AI data centers everywhere, they may go and vote Democrat because they want to stop it and they think the Democrats will stop them. So, and there's been some kind of indications that the Democrats are co-opting this issue. I could see them doing it in Utah because like somewhere when they go into rural areas like Millard County, if the opposition, because I'm assuming Millard County is all Republican and they went ahead and approved it. If the opposition is Democrats, I could see people flipping seats if they think it'll help them prevent that type of stuff from happening in their areas. It's something for Republicans to watch out for. Now it says many centers use evaporative cooling systems. This is what all the water is used for, where water absorbs heat and evaporates, similar to how sweat wicks away heat from our bodies. On hot days, a single facility can use millions of gallons. One study estimates that AI-driven data centers could consume 1.7 trillion gallons of water globally by 2027. Few places illustrate this tension more clearly than Georgia, one of the fastest growing data center markets in the US. Its humid climate provides a natural and more cost-effective source of water for cooling data centers, making it attractive to developers. But the abundance may come at a cost. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where I was here. They're trying to do things. What this article is talking about. They're trying to reduce water usage at these data centers, but it's still an issue. I mean, Georgia compared to the Utah is going to have lots of water, right? I mean, if you've ever been to Georgia or Illinois, like where I came from, Ohio, Virginia, these places actually have plenty of water, meaning it rains all the time there. There's not a water shortage. So the fact that a place like Georgia is actually having water issues from the development of AI data centers is really a warning shot for Utah to be careful of this, because we have water issues without a single data center being built here. And I don't know that we want to set this up so that we use all of our water and create like permanent droughts for people to have data centers everywhere. Okay. Well, let me see what else I have on this. Okay. Here's an example. So this is not an AI data center, but there was an article in the Trib in 2022 talking about some of the data centers that we have here today. And so you'll see here that, first of all, there's that big NSA data center campus that's over in Bluffdale. That thing uses a lot of water. 128,275,000 gallons a year. There's, but then these two at the bottom, C7. So there's four. Sorry, if you're listening and not watching, there's 4 data centers listed on here, and it shows in this chart, and it shows you how much water each of them uses. And so if you look at the chart, the biggest user of water is the NSA data center by far. It uses 10 times more than a Facebook one. So 128 million gallons. A Facebook data center uses 13 million gallons a year. And then you have the C7 data centers is using about 7 million gallons a year, and Nova data centers using about 1.1 million gallons a year. The Nova and the C7 data centers have a different way of cooling. They have like these closed loop systems with coolant in them. I think this is like a car radiator. That's how this is when I read this, that's kind of what it sounded like. And that's how they're cooling, but it still takes water to do it. Meaning it's not like they don't use any water. They're still using water. And again, let's just say that they all put in, and these are not AI data centers, because according to a different article, AI data centers actually run hotter, use more power, and use more computing power than a regular data center. So they are a different beast altogether. These are traditional data centers and their water usage. So if you can get them all down to these lower levels, I guess that's at least helpful, right? But then we need our policymakers to be insisting that if you are going to build data centers in Utah, they need to be the most water efficient ones possible, because we actually do have a water shortage without your data center even being here. Okay, so that's, so in that example I was just showing you, NSA is using enough water to power, I guess, or to supply 1,171 homes per year. So each Utah home uses about 300 gallons of culinary water a day. There are these, you'll see that there are these studies out there that say Utah's homes use more water than most homes in the US, but I think they include your secondary water as well. And I feel like that's actually unfair, because, like, I water my grass because I get secondary water, but I'm not like, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't water my grass. Like, whatever. Okay. So anyway, the overall point here is this. We are getting a lot of pressure to start building all these data centers in Utah, and they're going to keep pushing into rural areas of our state. They use massive amounts of power, they use massive amounts of water, and all for what? For a few jobs, and for like a weird chat bot, and for making your kids stupid because they'll take away the need for them to go and do research, go to source materials, understand issues deeply. And I would just say that we should be doing more to oppose the bringing of these facilities into our state. And really, the ultimate goal should be, one, I like the idea of having our legislature require that big projects actually tell us how much water they're going to use, so that we can judge whether they're worth putting here, or they should go to a different state where they have more water. But also, we want a state government that is not incentivizing certain industries over others and playing favorites. It would be much better and is much more sustainable for the state government to focus on making us more business friendly, which would require them to do things like lower taxes on businesses, lower regulations on businesses, and keep on cutting at that level, so that more people want to have businesses here, more small businesses are started in the state, and that people are willing to take these risks and to try to develop our economy, especially by our own people. Because again, you want an economy that reflects your local culture. What Governor Cox and his Equality Utah friends and Utah's first gentleman and Lieutenant Governor Henderson and Amy Winder Newton and all these freaks that are around him want is they want to go on importing companies that are not based in Utah, that do not agree with Utah's culture. So every time you bring in a tech company, you bring in a bunch of freaks with the tech company who want to push the DEI, who want to push the trans agenda, who thinks that trannies are, the best employees in the world and should be favored over everybody else. And you have to use their preferred pronouns or they're going to fire you. But instead, what we want, I think, is companies that reflect our local culture. And to do that, all you got to do is the government needs to get out of trying to pull some certain types of industries here and instead focus on creating the best business environment so that people here can start their own businesses that reflect our local culture. Okay, now let's get to our next topic. We're going to talk a little bit of politics, I think. Oh, actually, first, let's talk about one other thing that's kind of related to that, cloud seeding. Okay, so there's this whole article about how Utah is really big into cloud seeding. Of course, Celeste Malloy is fully on board cloud seeding. According to her, we're always looking for ways to have better water policy and be more innovative, Utah's U.S. Rep Celeste Malloy said. I'm just going to ask the question. So I read through this article, and I don't see anything in here that tells me something measurable that they can point to showing that their cloud seeding has been working. I suspect, and this might be because I am very skeptical of anybody in government actually trying to do good things. No offense if you're one of the people actually trying to do good things, but after COVID, I don't trust any elected official. Because what I learned is that they will just fall for any and all propaganda if they think that it benefits them politically. Gross people. Totally gross people. But so when you look, though, at this cloud seeding, what I would like to have seen in this article is for them to say, okay, in 2023, or let's say in 2024, we were only going to have 60 inches of snow in the mountains, but because of our efforts, we had 120 inches. This article doesn't say any of that. It just makes these broad statements about how they're trying to make it so that we get more rain, but it does not say that we have actually gotten more rain from their cloud seeding efforts, which makes me wonder if they're actually causing the clouds to evaporate. Some of you guys are going to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I'll just tell you, I have said a lot of conspiracy theories that have come true. So all I'm saying here is I want to see data, real hard data, showing me that your cloud seeding efforts are actually producing results and that they are not causing weather patterns to change in a way that's reducing rain that we would have had if you did not cloud seed. So I guess this is something I wish people would be more skeptical, because anytime the government is involved in anything, they F it up. And that's the calling sign of government, is you get people in there who think they're super smart. A lot of times they're not actually that smart. They just want to wield power, and they'll do it in ways that damage our society and our state. Utah has shown that repeatedly. And so I just wonder, is cloud seeding effective? And if someone could give me an answer to that, I would love it. But again, this article has no results. They have no concrete evidence that cloud seeding works. Not a scintilla. And that goes back to all the water being used for the data centers. Because in my mind, I think to myself, well, let's say that they dry up a bunch of land, they make it less valuable, and then guess what happens? They can then sell it. You're forced to sell your land for cheaper than they could have bought it before because of what they've done. And now they can just turn over Utah's kind of, I would call it maybe the pioneer population, right? The people that are kind of have been on their land for generations because their pioneers came and they claimed it, whatever, 150 years ago. And so I guess that's what I'm thinking. Is there might be something going on here, and maybe it's worth asking the question. Like, I want to see the data, good hard data, that your cloud seeding efforts have actually been effective. Show me, where have we gotten more precipitation because you cloud seeded? Okay, so December 9th, we're going to have a special session in the Utah legislature. I don't know if you guys watched the press conferences last week, but I did, unfortunately. And what I came away with it was the special session is not, actually none of their efforts are going to change the maps. The maps are what the maps are. Okay, so Judge Gibson's map is the map for 2026, unless some miracle happens. And I guess their map C I'll be honest with you. I think I said this before on the show, but it is my view that Judge Gibson's map is actually better than the legislature's map C. And the reason is this: Judge Gibson's map takes all the Democrats and puts them into a sink, and it keeps the other three districts solidly Republican. Okay, hold on. So, okay. So in Judge Gibson's map, we have a Democrat, a beautiful Democrat district right in the middle of Salt Lake County, and everyone is now jumping into it. And one of the people who jumped in is Nate Bluen. So Jonah W says, "Did you see that the Bernie Sanders endorsement of Nate Bluen?" I did see that. Kind of interesting, right? I guess. Well, if you think about it, their biographies are kind of similar. Bernie Sanders never had a real job, was a total loser, and somehow parlayed that into a House and then a Senate career. Nate Bluen is very similar. Never had a real job, and I admitted it in an interview that has now been deleted. He is a total loser, and I just think an able-bodied man who has never had a job is a loser. And now he's going to be making policy. He'll probably win that congressional seat and be a legislator from Utah. And maybe he perfectly represents that district. I don't know. Maybe people in that district don't work. Or they may be all government connected, because I do find that when you dig into Democrats, especially the wealthy white liberals, a lot of them are actually connected to government in different ways. They either work for the government directly and get extremely high salaries for their jobs. So University of Utah, the state government. I can give you examples of Senator Jennifer Plum. She makes like $300,000 at the University of Utah as a pediatrician, even though she should be kept far away from children because she transed her own son. Tracy Gruber is the head of Utah's Department of Health and Human Services. She is a Democrat, and she was imported here from Chicago by Governor Cox. No idea why. She makes over $300,000 a year. Her husband, Andrew Gruber, works at the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and he also makes over $300,000 a year. They together make like $700,000 a year working for the government. And as you dig into Democrats in general, especially these wealthy ones, it's always government connections. They work for the government, they work for a government contractor, they work for a nonprofit that gets government funding. And so maybe in that district, they'll be very concentrated with government people. Government. So they'll love Nate Bluen, I think. He's a total creep, but because let's see, if just in case people don't know this, let me see if I can find it real quick. But he actually did this. He posted about how a kid who was like a little boy who was dancing at a drag show. I do not know why. It's so disgusting. Was had moves. He's like, that kid's got moves. Very gross. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Sometimes I have trouble doing this on the computer. It's a little bit harder. Let me see here. But I tend to think that district for us is lost as a district. It's not It's not winnable. And I don't know if they'll have someone here. Oh, here, someone posted about it. I'll show you this. Just, you should be aware of what we're talking about when we talk about Nate Bluin. So this was his post. 13. So it's a 13-year. It's a picture of a 13-year-old boy dressed like a girl sexually gyrates on stage for the entertainment of grown adults. And Nate Bluin responds and says, "That kid's got moves." I mean, so disgusting, right? We should all be against the sexualization of children, but there is a subset of Democrats who are bizarrely supportive of this. I don't understand it. I think they think they're being good people by encouraging this, but this poor little boy is being sexually exploited, and the adults are disgusting for allowing that. Just disgusting. Anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Nate Bluin getting the Bernie Sanders endorsement. I feel like that means he will probably win that district. You know, today I was thinking it's kind of interesting. When the districts were not competitive, the Democrats put up Darlene McDonald. She is a local race huckster as their candidate for CD4. But now that they have this competitive district in the new CD1, and Darlene actually lives within the district, oddly, they're not asking her to run. And so I think they just used her because she was black and they needed a black person to run against Burgess Owens. And now that they've got their little specific district, if you notice, they're running white people. So they got Nate Bluin. And look, I don't actually care about race, but I'm going to hold them to their own standard because they do. That's all they care about. They got this heterosexual white guy, Nate Bluin. In his case, I think he might actually, or he might, I don't know, okay, whatever. He's married to a woman. But he acts more masculine when he talks and stuff. Then they've got, what's that guy's name? He comes off as super gay. Ben McAdams. Man, I have never heard. I mean, I assume that I at least sound a little bit gay, right? Whatever. But he sounds like, whoa, I can't believe that people think he's straight. Here, I put his video up a few times because it's just so weird to listen to. Let me see. Let's see if I can find it because this one is good. Of course, when I want to find this, I can't. This is what I'm saying. I don't know how to search. Like when I search for stuff, it's easier to do it on my phone. So let's see here. Oh, what is this? This is weird. Ben McAdams. No, what I need to do? No. Okay, I have the right thing. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find it. I know I can find this. I will find it. Oh, here. Okay, hold on. I did it wrong, I think. At Ben McAdams. McAdams. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. Let me show this. This is good. You'll see what I'm saying. Okay. Here we go.
From his wrongdoing and made bogus allegations. He tried to divert law enforcement's attention from his wrongdoing and made bogus allegations against me. That matter was thoroughly investigated and I was cleared completely.
Miller pleaded guilty to
He tried to divert law enforcement's attention from his wrongdoing and made bogus allegations.
I mean, holy lisp. Good Lord. I can't. It's too much. I can't pretend. Anyway, I've heard there's going to be other people jumping into that race as well. So there's rumors that Ava Lopez Chavez, I think is her name. She's a Salt Lake City council member, that she may jump into the race. She kind of made some noise like that. That one could be kind of interesting because there's a lot of Republicans that like her. And then we'll have to see who else jumps in. I honestly think people like Jennifer Plum should jump in. She trans her son. She might as well ride that all the way into Congress. She's like perfect for a Democrat. Lots of the Democrat Congress women have actually trans their sons. It's wild when you look at the statistics. Just as an example, Pramila Jayapal, she's a representative out of Washington. She immigrated here from India. became a naturalized citizen, now promotes open borders, trans her son, which is very unusual in the Indian community in general. So like she's in some ways, she's actually very Americanized. In others, she is not. She's very pro open borders. Let's see, Mr. Producer says cloud seeding also spews toxic chemicals and metals. Yeah, tell me about it. I know, that's what's wild. I don't understand why people are okay with cloud seeding. As I said, I don't trust that they actually do it to make things better. I think they're actually trying to dry up the clouds. Okay, now, anyway, back to the press conference. I got totally distracted. Okay, so I think that Judge Gibson's map is better if the legislature is going to change their map, because she created a Democrat district, kept the other 3 Republican. The Republican legislature's district was actually bad because it created 2 competitive districts. And next year, I think, is going to be a blowout because the Republican Congress has proven that they are completely useless and hate their voters. So they're probably going to get wiped out. Now, the actual thing that the legislature should have done is kept their original map and impeached Judge Gibson. But after watching that press conference, it has been very clear to me that they don't plan on doing that, and that all the actions that they are purporting they will take will not actually change the map. So, Judge Gibson's map is the map for 2026. And they're trying to kind of put up this hope, like, oh, okay, we're going to change the deadline to file for office, which, just so we're all clear, they changed the deadlines to file for office. I think they did it in 23, so it became effective in 24, and they moved it earlier. So it used to be, I think, the end of February, beginning of March, and they moved it to the beginning of January. And they did that because what they're trying to do is insulate themselves from competition. What was happening before is that they would take controversial votes during the legislative session, typically ones that their voters didn't want, and then someone would file to challenge them to run in the next election. They moved it so that the filing deadlines were before the legislative session starts to prevent that from happening. So everything these people, a lot of what the legislature does is actually extremely corrupt, and it's aimed at keeping them in power. They should move that deadline. That's one of the things they're talking about doing in the special session, is moving the deadline for congressional candidates to file from January to March. They should actually move it for everybody from January to March. There's no reason for it to be in January, except as an incumbent protection program. And they should keep it in March or end of February like it used to be, because that's where it should be. You should not be having people file to run in November in January. There's no need for that. So that would be my thing. Now, the second piece of this, which I think is more important for people to pay attention to, is they are very, very, very focused on reducing the signature thresholds to access the ballot. Now, if you've been paying attention to this show, I have walked you through Michael Clara's findings. And I think Michael Clara has been on a couple times to talk about them too, on how Governor Cox did not actually collect the 28,000 legitimate signatures he was required to access the 2024 Republican primary ballot. So they cheated. Just let me put that out there again. Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson cheated in 2024 to get onto the Republican primary ballot. Now that's just the cheating we know of. There may be more. But what I think that the entire investigation into this, their signature fraud, which is still ongoing, has exposed is that it is impossible to actually collect the number of signatures that are required under state law. And so if those numbers remain where they are today, the next person running for governor in 2028, I do not think will be able to collect 28,000 legitimate signatures, which means that we can shut down the signature path as a practical matter and force everybody to go through convention. And only those who get at least 40% of the vote at convention would move on to the primary. So I think the special session is really a backdoor way to justify lowering the signature thresholds. And they're going to give you all sorts of justifications. I've already seen them. So it's like, if you're like, well, why are you guys trying to reduce the signature threshold requirements? And they say, well, Goud, we're going to move the filing deadline from January to the end of February. So we don't have as much time. And so now we need to reduce the signature threshold. That's what we're going to do. And here's what I say. No. The answer is no. Absolutely not. The signature thresholds should remain. That's not my effing problem. That's your problem. And if you cannot meet them in whatever the time is that's been allotted, that is your problem. And you need to find a way to make it work. But if you can't meet the thresholds, then you need to get at least 40% of the vote in convention. And if you can't get at least 40% of the vote at the convention, then you should not move on in our election system. That's the bottom line. And so I'll just tell everybody, you need to pay very close attention to this special session, because I don't think anything they're going to propose is going to change what happened. I think that they are going to aim this at reducing signature thresholds to benefit themselves come 2028. So, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm going to be right. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be right. So that's what I would tell everybody is we need to watch this very closely, the special session. And we need to make sure that if they try to reduce those signature thresholds, that we are there opposing them. I don't care what the deadline is. You're not doing it. Okay, let's talk immigration.
What's going on, pal? I'm at the yard, and nobody's here. Nobody came in. Yeah, these guys are really fucking shaking up over here. All the excavators are shutting off right now. Yeah, no one's turning them on because, no one's here. I don't know if you realize this, but everybody here was undocumented. To be honest with you, I was thinking about it, and if you want me to continue working, I'm going to need a raise. I'm looking for $200 an hour. It is what it is, Frankie. You want me to operate the fucking machine? This is what it costs.
Okay. I'm sharing that because that is, I think that's a parody video, but it's actually pretty accurate about what's been going on for years and years in America. Both legal and illegal immigration have been suppressing wages in our country for American citizens. And it is time that we cut off the flow at both ends. So on illegal immigration, I think Trump is making a lot of inroads on this area in terms of shutting off the ability of people to cross the border, right? That's definitely done. And increasing deportations. So there have been some kind of, even I've been critical, obviously they're going to have to increase deportations massively because there are 40 to 50 million illegal aliens in the US. That's a fact. You'll hear these people kind of say, no, God, there's 11 million. There's no way. There's no way. I mean, Biden let in 20 million at least, and there were already 32 million, about 30 million in the country before that. So you're talking 40 to 50 million. Every single one of them needs to get the F out. We're done. And as they do that, they also need to go after employers and prosecute them. So to make it clear that we're not going to tolerate you hiring any illegal aliens. The effect of that will be to raise wages. Will be twofold, actually. One, Americans will get those jobs because the illegals are everywhere. They are everywhere. Small businesses, especially those owned by immigrants, hire a lot of illegal aliens. So when you go to 7-Eleven, when you go to whatever your franchise is that's owned by Indians, a lot of times the workers there are illegal. And it's not just Indians. I guess I'm singling out Indians, but anybody, any of these immigrant groups, they hire a lot of illegal aliens in these jobs. On top of that, you're going to have your construction industry is dominated by an illegal workforce, and a bunch of other industries. Well, trucking has illegals in it, which is shocking to me, and many, many other industries. And so we need to shut the flow off and also prosecute the companies that have allowed it to happen. And I also think, because part of that is that if you've been hiring illegal aliens, you've probably been breaking other laws as well. And so we need a full-on crackdown on that side of it. I'll also note that they've begun to do some other stuff too, shutting off the earned income tax credit, at least the refundable portion for illegals. I actually think they should shut off the non-refundable portion as well, but at least it's an improvement. And also, they should invoke the Patriot Act and shut off all remittances, that's the word, by illegal aliens back home, making it so you have to be here legally to actually send money to your family back in your home country. But they're instead doing it so that I think it'll shut off over $2,000 or more. And that at that level, I think is when where Treasury will start to investigate. So, they're making some choices, I think, based on resources, but we need to make it impossible to live in the country if you're illegal. And in Utah, we need a lot of work on this issue because, unfortunately, our legislators are totally open borders freaks. So, just as an example, and I know I've talked about this before, but if you know how this stuff works, you got to talk about things more than once for people to remember it. So one of the biggest proponents of open borders in Utah is Candace Perucci. And I think she's going to be announcing her congressional run probably in January, I assume. And so until 2022, in Utah, any employer with 15 or more employees was required to use E-Verify. In 22, the Utah legislature increased the threshold to 150 employees. So only employers with more than 150 employees have to use E-Verify. When they tried to reduce this back to 15 in 2024, there were employers and industry groups that actually went to the legislature and openly talked about how they'll have a labor shortage if we crack down on them using illegal labor. And so, but the people that caused this are people like Candace Perucci and Jordan Tusher. Both these are legislators down in Riverton and South Jordan who sacrificed the ability of your children, your American children, to get jobs for their donors. And really, the answer here is you should toss these people from office, because when they're tested, they're voting against your interests and the interests of your children. And I think some people in Utah have been taught that you're supposed to sacrifice your children's future so that foreign illegal aliens can come in and take their jobs, take their opportunities. And I would just say to you that is the wrong attitude to have. If you are a parent, you're supposed to be protecting your children. And part of that is making sure that they can get a job and get paid a good wage when they graduate from, I would say, high school. But because of Candace Perucci and Jordan Tusher, that's not possible in Utah anymore. They did this, and they should be out of office for it. And if you look at this list, there's a bunch of Republicans on here. Brady Brammer is one, of course. Yeah, Brady Brammer. Again, these are all people who make money off the government, who then turn around and are happy when employers hire illegals if they can make a little dough on the side. It's disgusting. They disgust me. Now, the other part is it's not just so again, in Utah, we've got to shut off this illegal alien flow, requiring full-on, we need employer crackdowns by the state. We need them to set up I would say checkpoints at the airport to check that drivers who are doing Uber and Lyft are actually legal. And then I would just say if they're not, arrest them right there and turn them away. Same down in, and speaking of which, we should get rid of driver's licenses for illegal aliens. Who does that? Why are you giving those to them? We should get rid of the ability of non-citizens to get any sort of taxpayer-funded scholarships at our universities. Why am I having to pay so some foreigner can come here and get a free education? I don't want to do that. It's one thing to ask me to do that for American kids. Okay, I'm okay with that. But why would I want to do that for foreigners? Honestly, I don't even want them to come to our universities. I think they're a suck on they're actually making our education system worse. So there's that. That's just, but let me add, that's your illegal alien part. There's also the legal immigration part that needs to be shut off too. We have all sorts of ways that people are basically coming to the country in the millions a year, and they're stealing opportunities from American kids. So, for example, the H-1B program, it's not even American kids, but it's American adults. They're actually, these big companies are importing H-1B visa people by the hundreds of thousands a year, because they'll give you an official number. It's like 85,000. But there's a bunch of organizations that are exempt from the cap. So the real number is like 300,000 a year that are coming in, and they are stealing jobs from Americans. They cost less and they're compliant because 85% of them are coming from India. And I can tell you, Indian culture is extremely compliant. They go and they work, and they do not file discrimination complaints. They do not ask for time off. They do not complain about things. So employers prefer them over Americans who know that they have rights and are going to exercise them. On top of the H-1Bs, though, you have the OPTs. So we allow all these student visas to come in, and then once they graduate, we allow them to convert into an OPT, which is basically a mechanism for them to then stay here. Now, it's one thing to say you want to have student visas come to our colleges, learn whatever. I mean, I guess they can learn DEI and, you know, the trans agenda. They can go back to their country and ruin it. I'm okay with that. In fact, I think we should make those required courses. Like if you come here from China, you will have to take a whole semester of trans ideology and DEI, so you can learn how you're inherently racist as a Chinese person who grew up in China. And then we'll send you back to your country to spread that around. But the point being, though, is they come here and then they never leave. So we're like, okay, we need to bring in all these foreign students to allegedly enrich the American experience, which I don't know how it does that. I'm just thinking back to when I went to college. There were not a lot of foreigners in the college I went to. But when we went, I remember in chemistry class, I think it was, we had a lab, and I remember there was this woman from an Asian country. I don't remember which one, but she had a horrible accent, and we couldn't understand what she said. So, you know, like, I don't understand how that's supposed to enrich. That didn't enrich my experience back then because I couldn't understand her. Now, she tried, but again, like, it's not valuable to an American to go to school and not be able to understand what your teacher is telling you. So I don't find this valuable. I don't even think we should let them in because honestly, they're taking spaces from Americans. But if we're going to let them in, they need to go home afterwards. They should not be staying here and taking jobs from Americans. Otherwise, universities are just visa mills. They are immigration mills to allow people to immigrate to the US. That's all they are. You know, I'm hoping that Trump is finally going to start cracking down on all this, because it seems like the Afghani who murdered a National Guard member in our capital has finally set him off to say we're shutting this off, at least from some countries. But the reality is we should shut off immigration from all countries. We have too many immigrants in this country. It's far too high, and we need time to absorb the people that are here illegally, to get all the illegals out, and to, you know, get our culture to get an American culture again. It's gone right now. I couldn't even tell you, I don't feel like I live in America like half the time because there's so many foreigners everywhere I go. It's very weird. Let me show you this. Actually, let me show you this. This type of stuff drives me up the wall. So today I was reading that the U.S. Postal Service uses foreign truck drivers. I mean, come on, like, this is what I'm talking about. You have government agencies hiring foreigners over Americans to do stuff. These trucks should all be driven by Americans. And I honestly, it is my view that legal immigrants should not be able to get certain jobs in the U.S. So I don't want someone legally immigrating here and being able to become a truck driver. I don't see why we need to import that person to the U.S. Look, we don't need you here. We have our own truck drivers. And we should be doing that for all sorts of industries, shutting off the flow of immigration if you're not going to actually be in an industry where we ostensibly need somebody. And I don't really think, you know, like I said, my own views, we should have a complete immigration moratorium. But if we're not going to have that, then we need to be selective about those that we bring in. But why the hell is the Postal Service hiring foreigners to drive trucks? This should be Americans doing this. And that's it. It should be only Americans. They're apparently, and actually, this article said USPS is one of the worst offenders in flooding its network with fraudulent CDLs. It believes it deserves special treatment that no one else gets. The federal government is trying to shut this down, and the USPS is just openly refusing to crack down on their own drivers. But I will fault Trump for that, because he should fire the executives at the USPS, right? That's how you handle this problem. Okay, let me just show you. I just had a thought about something, and it came to not disappeared from my head, but it'll come back. Oh, it's the number of foreign-born people in the U.S. here. So Trump put this out, and this shows that there are 53 million foreign-born people in America, putting it at almost 16%. That's the highest on record since 1850. That's high, right? But I don't think this is actually accurate. And I'm not sure exactly what this is reflecting, but I think that this is your legal immigrants, is 53 million legal immigrants that some of whom are probably Americans, some of them are green card holders. I don't think this counts your illegals. And if you count your illegals, you're talking about another 40 to 50 million more. And so it's really probably close to 30% of the population is foreign born. And when you think about that, and then you go out to the store in like Harriman, or you go in places in Salt Lake City or all over really Utah, and you notice how few people actually speak American English when you're out and about, this 30% would not be surprising at all. And I'll just say, you cannot maintain your culture with that many foreigners here. Because the thing with immigration is it only works if people are forced to assimilate, because they're coming from countries that do not have as good of a culture as America has. And now I say this as someone who's a product of immigration. Indian culture, people talk about it like, oh, it's so conservative, it's so good, blah, blah. It's really not. And its purest form, Indian culture produced India. And if you've been to India, you can see it is a shithole. Trump actually accurately described it, right? It is corrupt to its core. Everything is corrupt. I mean, everyday citizens are corrupt because it's that corrupt they can't even live their normal life without participating in the corruption. It's corrupt. It's racist. You know, like people don't realize, but in India itself, light-skinned Indians discriminate against dark-skinned Indians. I mean, that's how weird the stuff is. And when you bring too many people like that here, they bring all of those cultural negatives to the US, and they don't change to assimilate into American culture, which is inherently better. You know, like we actually have a society where people believe you should be colorblind, except for people like Darlene McDonald, who are big pushers of who's a race huckster. But you know, for most other people, and I would say a lot of Democrats are also into the DEI and the CRT and stuff like that. But for most people, the ideal is being colorblind. But that is not what Indian culture is. Indian culture does not believe in colorblindness. They're the opposite of that. And so when you start importing too many people and they're not forced to assimilate, they actually begin to import all of those bad cultural traits and to keep them when they're here. And so instead of becoming Americans, like if you went and met my parents, they're pretty Americanized. And, you know, obviously they have an accent when they talk. I guess that doesn't go away. But, you know, and they eat Indian food. But for the most part, they actually believe in America. They love the country. They agree that we should fight for our country. And if there's a war between India and America, that we would fight for America, not India. I don't think that you would find that with newer immigrants. And I think that's a big problem. And that's because they're not assimilating. And I think people better wake up to that, because we're heading down a very bad path, the path we're going here. And so the 30% foreigners is way too high. It should be like 5%. foreign-born at any time. Okay, I want to play this video because this video just it really disturbed me. And it gets to my point about too much immigration and what it does. Let me see, hold on. Yeah, okay. So first, it's this guy, Wajahat Ali. His parents are from India, and apparently they actually were convicted of defrauding Microsoft and had to serve time. What I don't understand is why they were not deported after this happened, which shows you our immigration system is completely broken. We're not even, I mean, people are coming here, they're committing fraud and crimes. And even if you become a citizen, if you immigrate, become a citizen and commit fraud, we should denaturalize you and send you home. Because there should be a zero tolerance for that type of behavior. But we don't have that anymore. We're actually not doing that. We're allowing people to come here, commit crimes, bring their culture to our country, and do that. But let's listen to them for a couple minutes.
The mistake that you made is you have lost. You lost. The mistake that you made is you let us in the first place. See, that's the thing with brown people. I'm going to say this as a brown person. There's a lot of us. Like a lot. There's like 1.2 billion in India. There's more than 200 million in Pakistan. There's like 170 million in Bangladesh. Those are just the people there. I'm even talking about the folks who are expats or immigrants. There's a bunch of us. And we breed. We're a breeding people. And the problem is you let us in 1960.
I don't actually think that part's true. Like most of the Indians I know have 1 to 2 kids. So I think they're actually pretty normal in that front. I also think it's weird that, I mean, his point about it, there's tons of Indians in India is true. But my whole view of that has been, then we don't need to preserve Indian culture in America because there's I think it's actually 6 billion of them in India. They can preserve it without our help. Don't need it.
There were a few of us beforehand, but once you let one of us in, you know what happens with brown folks? Our grandmother comes, our grandfather comes, our uncle comes, our aunt.
Yeah, and actually, this is the thing. We should not let in people's grandmothers, their grandfathers, and we should shut off chain migration. I actually, so when I was growing up, my grandmothers came. They stayed for some period of time. They both got green cards, but they lived with us. So they would stay with us. We would take care of them. They didn't speak English. I guess I think by the end of her life, one of my grandmothers understood a decent amount just because she had a lot of grandkids who spoke English, but they never they weren't here to stay, and they weren't part of the system, and they weren't going on to welfare and all this kind of stuff. They were actually just in our family. And so I think some of this stuff, we need to shut down some of this stuff because allowing people to bring their grandparents here and then to get onto welfare doesn't make any sense.
Aunt comes, our cousin comes, our second cousin comes, our third cousin comes. Then we have kids, a bunch of kids. And then guess what? Some white women, the Western civilization women, the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So
Okay. That really disturbed me a lot, what he just said about, Monica's on. Yeah, I put her through. This part really disturbed me because I think it's really weird to talk about other races. Oh, yeah, she can come on. Races like that. So like I can tell I'm of Indian origin. I tend to like, I'm dating a guy who's white. I don't ever think of it this way. I just think the way he said that is really disturbing. Okay, Monica, are you on?
I am. How are you doing, Goud?
I'm good. How are you? So what do you have for us today?
Well, you brought up some interesting points about the immigration, and I just wanted to relate them back to what's happening in the schools. But I don't think a lot of people know that the state board is like fast tracking a lot of these people who are coming into our country, and there's not necessarily a citizenship requirement to be teaching in the schools. And so, nobody's checking to see if you're an American citizen, essentially, in order to be teaching in the schools. And so, they've got all these people with their foreign credentials, and they're doing everything they can to fast track them to be teaching in the schools, which, it's like, okay, do we not have, like you mentioned before, do we not have enough U.S. citizens to be doing this job, and it creates all sorts of havoc for the kids. I know it did for my kids. They had a few math teachers who they couldn't understand. They couldn't make heads or tails of what the math teacher was saying, that makes it hard. And that's just math. I mean, we're not talking even, and that's a highly technical subject. But when you have these professionals, and they're not necessarily like professionals trained, in the same way that professionals here are trained, but they're like, and I think it was SB 35. And so all they need is work authorization. So that could mean they're in the process of, claiming refugee status, etc. Technically speaking, if they're undocumented, they're not supposed to be taking part in this process. But so many will come in and they'll claim refugee status, and we know how long that takes to get sorted out.
Yeah. Talk about, have they given a justification for allowing people with that status to become teachers versus just hiring Americans instead?
Like, say that one more time. Sorry, you sort of cut out.
I guess. Oh, I'm wondering, has the board given a justification for allowing people with these work authorizations to become teachers, considering that we have Americans that can do that job?
Right. They're having trouble keeping teachers. That's the big justification given.
Sure.
I believe by Malia Height, that the need for teachers is just so acute that those who want a Utah license don't have trouble finding work. Once they have a license, they can get a job. And so, and the teachers are burning out. They're burning out the teachers like in droves. And that's because they've turned these schools into highly dysfunctional ecosystems, right? Where, they're not allowed to really discipline the kids. Everybody's got a mental health issue. You get rewarded for having more mental health issues and intersectional issues. On top of that, it's kind of like a really nasty situation in the schools. And I think the teachers I know I've talked to more than my fair share of good teachers who are just appalled at how it's so funny, because you have all this, you've introduced diversity into the schools, like in not a good way, right? Like suddenly you've got 30% of Harriman High's population that doesn't speak English. That's a problem. That's a real problem. And there was an article, I believe, in one of the city journals, and it was talking about how here's this junior ROTC teacher who says, hey, it's great because I've got these kids who don't speak English in the class, and I have them lead the creed, the ROTC creed in their native language. And he says it's awesome because that allows the kids who do speak English, that puts them in the shoes of the other kids and makes them develop empathy for not knowing what English sounds like, basically, or not knowing what another language sounds like, and what it means. And so they're using these as kind of like these little wedges. It's really not a good thing.
God, that's so weird. When I was a kid, I had a cousin who immigrated from India, and he was young at the time. He was probably like 2 or 3 years old when he got here. And then when he went to kindergarten, I think, he learned English a little bit, around us and the family. And then when he went to school, they didn't have English as a second language, and it was just rapid. He just quickly picked up on it, and it was like sea change. And then I've seen people that are older come in and be put through the ESL programs, and it takes them longer, it seems like, to actually do the same adjustments compared to the younger kids who come in and are just kind of thrown into it without any sort of assistance. But I don't know if you've seen anything different from it.
No, well, what they're doing right now is they're using all the ed tech, right? They've got all these applications and programs, and over in Jordan School District, they've got translators. These wearable technology that just translates everything into your own native language. Well, there goes the all incentive to actually pick up English and develop any sort of English skills. So they are crippling these kids academically. When you can sit down, and the justification they use is, hey, this kid needs to be able to keep up with their core subjects. And so the easiest way for them to do that is to learn in their own language. Well, there goes all the assimilation you're talking about right there. Like, language is the crux of any culture. It really is. And the fact that they're giving these kids this crutch of learning your own language, and you can pick up English, kind of on the side. I mean, they do ESL with them and all that kind of stuff, but it's not sink or swim, basically. They give them all the floaties, and then act like they're going to learn to become expert backstrokers, and it's just not gonna happen that way. We all know it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, and honestly, like, having kids not learn English proficiently is to their detriment. That's not helpful. How are they supposed to go into the real world and survive if they cannot speak, read, and write English well in the US? It makes no sense to me.
Well, that's interesting, because one of the inclusivity techniques or strategies that they're using they're transitioning everything into kind of iconography. It's called universal design for learning. But in order to make the learning materials more inclusive, we're not going to use words. We're going to use icons as much as possible. We're going to use universal symbols. Not in the same way that a PC or a Mac, you're sitting down with an Apple product and you've got these icons, and they're supposed to represent the same thing to everybody, regardless of what language you speak. And universal design for learning is a huge DEI mechanism for kind of equalizing, right, the classroom for everybody. But on the downside, you've got these kids who are, they speak English. Their skills are totally being underdeveloped by the schools, because there's so much focus on the equity portion of it, right? It's not that, we're closing the gaps, but by closing the gaps, you are lowering what used to be a high bar for success, so that everybody can accomplish kind of like this low bar of success. So it's really a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for the insights. This is really interesting. And you're going to be on next week, right? So we can talk more education issues.
Oh, absolutely. Would love to talk to you about DEI. There's a very interesting article that came out that had nobody talking about here in Utah, but it focuses a lot on Utah, and I think it's something that people need to keep in mind as we go into this new legislative season coming up here, about kind of where we really are in terms of DEI. I think a lot of people think it's like gone away, we passed the law, and it's exactly the opposite. But yeah, would love to talk about that more when we see you next week.
Okay, great. Thanks, Monica. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Goud. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so we have just a little preview. We will have Monica on next week. So, okay, let's see what we got here. Disagree butter says what? I don't know what you're referring to. Disagree. Jensen says, come on, John Johnson ended DEI. I know. It's very sad. Very sad. I don't think. Okay. Those are good insights, though. I will say, like, the education, her point about teachers burning out is really interesting, because I think sometimes we can think teachers are all just kind of these left-wing advocates. But I do think there's a lot of teachers that are actually trying to do a good job, and they're just getting, like, it's very over-regulated of an industry, and it must be extremely difficult to be able to actually function in that environment. I mean, like, if you just want to go and teach kids how to do math, but then you got to worry about all this other stuff on the side, I don't know how you do it. So maybe we'll talk about that more next week when Monica comes on. Disagree about her, so that was just a typo on my part. Okay, here.
Women, they like some of us brown folks. We don't take women, the real women, and the pure women, the American women, quote unquote, the Rust Belt women, the real women. They like some of us brown folks. We don't take them. They come to us. So we're embedded.
Okay. I know this is a weird thing to focus on. I just think the way he's talking about white women here is very weird to me. I have a lot of friends that I grew up with that are of Indian origin that have married white people, and they would never talk about their spouse in that manner. That's disgusting. That's just it's repulsive. And as someone, I have actually, my significant relationships in my life have been interracial as well. And so I'll just say that, like, I would never talk about someone who's white that I've dated or any other race in that manner. That's so disgusting. It's repulsive. The beauty of a place like America, at least it used to be, is that people can go. One of the things that's nice is you can date people of different races. You can marry people of different races. You can have significant relationships with people of different races. And the race thing, in those types of relationships, they only work if race is not a negative. Part of that, what comes along with that is that, for example, like a white person dating me might make fun of some of the Indian things that my family does, right? But it would never be something where I would be offended by it because it's funny. That's like the whole point. The observations can be really funny. And in the same way, I might observe things about his family that I think are funny, but it's not a negative. It's just they're like observational humor based on differences. And I just feel like this guy is turning it into something weird and disgusting, to be honest with you. Like, okay, we'll just keep listening to this, but I got to tell you, it's this type of attitude that is making me turn 100% against immigration. And I'll tell you specifically from India, because it brings in a lot of people like this freak.
We are everywhere. We are everywhere. I've traveled this country. I'm going to speak as a brown person. Brown people are everywhere.
Also, like why do you even feel any affinity towards a random person that's Indian that you would see anywhere? There would be no affinity. Like, if I went and I met a random Indian person in, I don't know, Chicago, why would I have some special affinity to them versus the people that I'm actually friends with of whatever race, who I have something in common with, that I have a relationship with, or the person I'm dating that I have a relationship with? This does not make sense. But the stuff he's talking about is just weird.
There will be a Patel Motel or there will be a Desi restaurant everywhere. I want you to realize this. You have lost. Your story is a shitty story.
Okay. This is where it gets really weird, because for an Indian person to say the American story is a shitty story is just effed up, because all you got to do is go to India and you will quickly realize why they came here. The Indian story is not good.
Filled with misery. It's filled with bland chicken. It's filled with.
That's like the stereotype about American food that bothers me a lot, because I'm always like, I love some steak and potatoes. I eat it all the time. But this is the type of attitude. It's racism. This is a coded racism, and it's really disgusting.
Terrible, terrible, dry ass meat. Your music sucks. All your culture sucks. Nobody. That's why the kids like listen to black people and their music. That's why the kids love.
I mean, but black people are Americans, so I don't even understand his point.
Latinos. Your parties suck because they're monochromatic. Our parties have better.
That's not even true, and that actually shows. This shows you the problem. So, like, when I was growing up, we used to go to parties with people of all races. Nobody cared. Now they're actually like, "Oh, your parties are mono." What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Do you only go to parties with Indian people? That's it? That actually sounds boring to me, to be honest with you. Like, okay, I've been at a party with a bunch of Indian. Like, why would I want to go to that? I think I listen to Indian music. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to particularly eat Indian food all night. So, like, what is the great benefit of this? And why are you perpetuating these weird It is racism. Mr. Producer said, sadly, this person is creating racism. Yes, he is racist.
Better food, better music, better looking women. You have.
He's a total bigot. And here's the thing, is imported. We imported this guy into our country with his parents, who apparently are criminals anyway. So I don't even know why the whole family was deported to begin with. I find what we just watched to be totally repulsive and disgusting. And I wish people would stop talking like this. The thing is, as Americans, we should be expecting people to come here and to assimilate into our culture. And part of what that means is you got to stop with the bullshit where you're going to start insulting Americans. And this happens all the time. I see it all the time with new immigrants. Either they're racist against Black people or they're racist against white people. And if that happens, they should be sent home. We are not obligated to import people into our country who exhibit forms of racism that we do not find acceptable in our own country. You don't do that. I've just found it shocking for years, the stuff that we allow in. We also allow, just on this point, we allow tons of homophobes into the country, which I don't get. Like, people are like, oh, the Afghans helped us in Afghanistan. No, first of all, no, we helped them. And number two is their culture is super homophobic. Why would I want them here? I don't want them to come to my country. I want zero of them. I don't care if they're going to get killed in Afghanistan. That is their country. Fight for your country. Stay and fight. It's okay. It's actually a noble thing to do. And if you need to leave, go to Saudi Arabia. They have plenty of space there and they're rich. They would love to have you. And they'll probably find you a job building a building or something. The native people there don't actually work. Okay. Anyway, we're at time. I can keep going on this topic. I'm really worked up. But let me say thank you very much. I'm Goud, the host of the Goud Crowd. It has been a pleasure being with you tonight. We are live every Monday from 5 to 7 p.m. As I said earlier, Monica Wilbur will be on next week, and we'll be talking education issues in Utah. So tune in next Monday at 5. You can find us on my X handle, which is at Goud, 4 Utah. You can also find us at the Main Street Media X handle, as well as on YouTube and Rumble for Main Street Media. So thanks for listening. We will see you next week. Oh, sorry. Mr. Producers is at Media